So in Exodus chapter 4, verse 22, and you shall say to Pharaoh, thus says Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, Israel is my firstborn son. Does Jesus say Israel is his firstborn son?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Jesus does. Okay, is there any explicit scripture that says Jesus is the father of Israel?
Wait, say it again?
Is there any explicit scripture that says Jesus is the father of Israel?
Not that I know of.
So you think Jesus is speaking, saying that Israel is his son without any scriptural evidence?
Well, we would know that according to what Jesus, he is Yahweh, but we're just talking about in the sense of.
All right, you see what happened there, and that's exactly what I suspected as soon as he said yes, because it was a great question. And again, man, that's an argument I'd never thought of. That's a spectacular question. Is that God says Israel is my firstborn son? So if Yeshua is God, then we should be able to find a place where Yeshua refers to Israel as his son, not just his son, but as his firstborn son. Okay, so. I never considered that argument before. That's incredible. And as soon as he said yes, I was like, all right, where's he going to go with this? That intrigued me immediately. And then he admitted that there's no verse that says that. So what he heard when you asked the question, right, is does Jesus refer to Israel as his son? What he heard was, does God refer to Israel as his son? To which the answer is yes. But he superimposes Jesus for God mentally, which is why this was you can see he kind of gets a little confused as soon as he's like, as soon as that dichotomy is put in front of him, right? Because he's thought in this frame of mind for so long that he just assumes, well, God, Israel, or God, Jesus, same thing. Right, same thing. So wherever we see that God says something, we can just superimpose Jesus into that verse and say that, well, Jesus said this, right? Jesus gave the Torah to Moses. That's not how that works, right? Which is why this was a great question.
Fatherhood, that he has children according to Isaiah 53. So he does have children, but he's never called like the father of Israel. You can say that Isaiah chapter 9 states that he is Aviad, or the father of eternity, or that he has children according to Isaiah 53. That he says he will see his offspring. So, but not explicitly that he's the father of Israel.
All right. Well, in Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, it doesn't say that he is the father of Israel.
Notice what he did there, because he couldn't go to a New Testament passage where Jesus actually spoke. He had to go to an Old Testament passage where he superimposes Jesus into the place of whatever the prophet is speaking about there. So essentially his argument is, well, if we assume that this verse is talking about Jesus and this verse talks about Israel being his children, then we can assume, right, we can superimpose that it's Jesus talking about his children, and that way we can make the argument work. But there's so much presupposition that you have to do to make that work, when all he asked for was an explicit statement. An explicit statement from Jesus is what he asked for.
Regarding Isaiah 53, verse 10, there's no suffix to say that the seed belongs to the Messiah. So is there any other explicit verses that would say Jesus is the father of Israel?
Not explicitly.
That's cool.